When persistent pain collides with grief, finding relief can feel impossible. The emotional and physical experiences become woven together, often intensifying each other in unexpected ways. Many of you have messaged me asking about this difficult topic, and I want to thank those who requested this video. Have you ever felt like your persistent pain became overwhelming when you were grieving? As if the emotional weight made your physical symptoms unbearable? You're not alone in this experience. So many of us struggle when grief and pain collide, creating a storm that feels impossible to navigate. Life is full of transitions, moving to a new home, changing careers, or losing someone we love. And perhaps no transition is more profound than grief. When you're already dealing with chronic pain, navigating this transition can feel overwhelming, like you're carrying two impossible burdens at once. Today, I'll share 3 moving stories of people who found their way through this difficult intersection, along with practical strategies you can apply in your own life. These experiences, combined with evidence-based approaches, have shaped my understanding of how we can honor both journeys. If you've been searching for answers about finding pain relief while grieving, please subscribe and share this video. It helps others find this evidence-based information when they need it. Greetings. It's nice to see you again. And those here for the first time, you're very welcome. Today, let me introduce you to Jennifer, whose story might resonate with many of you. Jennifer is 26, a graphic designer who works remotely for a marketing agency. She lives with fibromyalgia, a condition characterized by widespread musculoskeletal pain, fatigue, and tenderness throughout her body. For Jennifer, mornings often began with stiffness that feels like her muscles have been tensed all night, and she experiences painful trigger points across her shoulders and back. When Jennifer's father suddenly died from a massive heart attack, her pain flared dramatically. It was like my body amplified everything she shared. I couldn't distinguish between the physical pain and the emotional agony anymore. One morning, about 3 weeks after the funeral, Jennifer found herself unable to get out of bed. Her usual management techniques just weren't working, and she felt completely overwhelmed. I was sitting on my bathroom floor, crying because I couldn't even brush my teeth without pain, Jennifer explained. My roommate gently knocked on the door and asked if I needed help. Something about having to admit I couldn't manage basic self-care broke through my isolation. I realized I had been trying to handle both my grief and my fibromyalgia pain all alone. That moment became Jennifer's turning point. She reached out to a community support group she found through her local library, completely free to attend. At the group, she was honest about how her pain had escalated. With their support and shared experiences, she developed an approach that acknowledged both her grief and her fibromyalgia needs. Jennifer began a gentle morning ritual that included 5 minutes of acknowledging her feelings about her father before doing her stretching routine. Giving space to both needs, my emotional processing and my physical care, somehow made room for healing in both areas, she explained. Within 2 months, Jennifer found she could honor both her grief while she was following her pain recovery routine. They're separate journeys happening at the same time, she said. I don't have to choose which one gets attention anymore. Doreen, much like Jennifer discovered, separating grief from pain recovery can be transformative, which brings me to Doreen's experience. Doreen is 46, an elementary school principal living with rheumatoid arthritis. Her condition causes painful joint inflammation, especially in her hands, wrists, and knees. On difficult days, simple tasks like riding or climbing stairs become significant challenges. The unpredictable flare-ups often force her to modify her normally active lifestyle. Doreen's mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, creating a different kind of grief, one that unfolds gradually as her mother's memory and personality slowly change. I kept pushing through, Doreen explained. At school, I'd be the capable principal. Then I'd visit Mom, trying to be the perfect daughter. By evening, I joined her screaming, but I ignored them because it felt selfish to focus on my pain when my mom was losing herself. The wake-up call came during a family dinner. Doreen was struggling to cut her food but refusing help. Her teenage daughter finally said, "Mom, we're losing Grandma, bit by bit, but we can't lose you too. You're disappearing into pain because you won't take care of yourself." This perfectly illustrates how caregiving can sometimes lead us to neglect our own self-care practices. I broke down right there at the dinner table, Doreen recalled. My daughter was right. I was so focused on being strong through the grief that I was sabotaging my health. Working with her rheumatologist and joining a free caregiver support group at her church, Doreen created boundaries around her caregiving responsibilities. She scheduled regular rest periods between visiting her mother and returning to work. Most importantly, she expanded the church support group to specifically include caregivers working toward their own pain recovery while supporting loved ones. There's something powerful about sitting with people who understand both struggles, she said. We can talk about feeling guilty for focusing on our pain when our loved ones are suffering, and we remind each other that self-care is not selfish, it's necessary. While Jennifer and Doreen found ways to balance their pain management with grief, Zach discovered how community support can make all the difference. Zach is 34, a physical education teacher living with complex regional pain syndrome, or CRPS. His condition developed after a sports injury and causes intense burning, sensitivity to touch, and swelling in his left leg. Even light contact with clothing can trigger severe pain, and changes in temperature often worsen his symptoms. When Zach's wife was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, he found himself in an impossible situation, needing to be a caregiver while managing his unpredictable pain condition. The first 3 months after the diagnosis, I tried to be superhuman, Zach shared. I'd drive to chemo appointments, stand for hours in waiting rooms, then come home in agony but hid it, because how could I complain about my leg when my wife was fighting cancer? Everything changed when his sister-in-law visited and found Zach unable to get off the couch, his CRPS flaring severely after overexerting himself. My wife's sister sat us both down and said something I'll never forget. You both need care, and you both can give care. This doesn't have to be one-sided. This perspective shift led to an honest conversation between Zach and his wife. Together, they created a calendar where they both marked their high-need days, treatment days, and his typical flare periods. Then they reached out to their community. We created what we call our circle of support, friends, family, neighbors who signed up for specific help. Some people could drive my wife to appointments. Others could prepare meals or help with household tasks when my pain was severe. What surprised Zach most was how this approach strengthened his relationship. When we stopped pretending I wasn't in pain, we could be honest about both our struggles. There were even days when my wife, despite cancer treatment, would sit with me during a flare and simply hold space for my pain. And I could do the same for her. Research has shown that grief and persistent pain share neurological pathways. Studies have demonstrated that emotional pain activates many of the same brain regions as physical pain, which helps explain why grief can amplify pain conditions. And evidence suggests that the stress response triggered by grief can increase inflammation throughout the body, potentially worsening conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, and CRPS. Additionally, grief often disrupts sleep patterns, which can lower pain thresholds and reduce the body's natural pain-fighting abilities. Understanding this connection helps explain why Jennifer, Doreen, and Zach all experienced intensified pain during their grief. It wasn't weakness or coincidence. It was their nervous systems responding naturally to emotional distress. This research emphasizes why navigating the transition of grief requires special attention when living with chronic pain. From these powerful stories, several helpful approaches emerge that can complement the care you receive from healthcare specialists while enhancing your self-care practices with neuroplasticity and lifestyle medicine that we talk about on this channel. Consider creating space for both experiences, as Jennifer did. You might set aside specific times to acknowledge your grief separately from your pain recovery practices. This isn't about compartmentalizing, but rather giving each experience the attention it needs without letting one overwhelm the other. Boundaries become especially important during grief, as Doreen discovered. Be honest with yourself about your limitations and communicate them clearly to others. Remember that maintaining your health isn't selfish. It's necessary for sustainable caregiving and emotional processing. Building a support network, like Zach and Sarah did, can be transformative. Consider making a list of specific tasks others could help with, matching people's abilities with your needs. Many friends and family want to help, but don't know how. Giving them concrete tasks often comes as a relief. Communication is vital throughout this process. Share with healthcare providers how grief is affecting your pain. They may suggest treatments or therapies that complement your self-care practices. Similarly, being honest with family about your pain doesn't diminish your support for them. It creates authenticity that can deepen connections. And finally, consider connecting with support resources that fit your budget. Many communities offer free grief support groups, pain recovery circles, and even online forums moderated by healthcare professionals. Local libraries, community centers, and religious organizations frequently host these at no cost. Techniques like mindfulness-based stress reduction and compassion-focused approaches have shown promise for addressing both challenges together and can often be learned through these accessible community resources. So living with persistent pain is challenging enough on its own. When grief enters your world, then that just tips you over into a lot of pain. Now, I've recorded this, and it's an emotional video to record because it's close to my heart, because I've worked 25 years as a chaplain, and I've walked shoulder to shoulder with people who do have health problems. Some of them are the chronic pain situations that I talk about through my videos. And I've seen what the toll of being a caregiver takes on them. And so I've recorded this from the bottom of my heart to your heart. And with that, I'm hoping that you'll take some of the suggested practices and strategies in this video today. And so it's bye for now, and I'm wishing you a comfortable week.